Let's kick off. I can see I already know many of you on the call this afternoon, but let me introduce myself to those of you who I haven't already met. My name's Rob Jameson, and I'm the Regional Development Manager for Pearson Edexcel and Pearson Schools in France, Italy, and Monaco. I'm based in Paris, where I am today, and it's a bit cool and grey. It's not very spring-like, I'm afraid, here this afternoon, but there is hope. There's always hope. And over the last 3 months, we've communicated regularly with all our centres via the exams officer updates, with additional special bulletins, communications and FAQs that have been updated almost on a weekly basis on our website. And our assessment teams have also run live and made available recorded webinars. So there have been a number of opportunities to make sure that you're up to date with all the information. But because the deadline for entries for this summer is coming up this weekend, so tomorrow is the last working day before the entry deadline for this summer's international series, I thought it would be useful just to have a quick summary of what we know so far, what the rules are about how this summer's series will work, and then to make sure that we have time to answer a number of your individual questions, and we'll come to those with the help of my colleague who's joining us on the call, Nicola Merchant. And Nicola Merchant is the Director of International Qualifications at Pearson Edexcel in the UK. So she will join me on screen to answer your individual questions after the presentation part. I also want to introduce, I hope I can't see everybody's icon on the screen, but I hope that my colleague Claudio Di Sisto is also on the call. Claudio is our in-house sales administrator for Europe, and many of you will have had the opportunity.
Oh, he isn't on the call.
Oh, is Claudio not here yet? Well, he should be joining later on. And if not, in any case, if you don't know Claudio, then I'll include his contact details at the end. And Claudio is very much the person to help you with sort of procedural problems. If you get any issues or blockages with candidate entries, or not knowing who to speak to about a subject query or about an administrative or payment question or anything else, Claudio is a good person to start to get you on the path to the right place. So I'll hope to introduce him to you before the end of the session today. Right, so let me share my screen now and run you through a summary of where we are with this summer's rather exceptional circumstances and series again, and how we're approaching it, what the detail is for both our UK and our international series. The reason why I'm going to talk about both the UK series and the international series is that I know that most of you are entering candidates for Edexcel international exams. We also have a number of centres that enter some UK subjects, but more importantly, we have reflected as far as possible a similar approach. So most of the things when I talk to you about the international series, about the UK series, apply to the international series as well, because we've wanted to mirror the approach in order to, as ever with Edexcel, ensure an equivalence of validity between our international and our UK qualifications. So I'll show you both to show then where international varies from the principles that apply in our UK series. And some of it I'll cover rather briefly, because after this, I'll send you the slides so that you'll have more detail than I'll actually speak to with the slides. So I hope you can now see my screen. And This was the last public update. We've got new information that will be coming out on a weekly basis, and some of the updated information we can speak to in the section after this this formal public presentation bit. So, first of all, here's what we're going to be looking at briefly: the key dates and the deadlines, the forms of support that we're offering centres this summer, the differences between, or the similarities mainly, but then also any differences between treatment for our UK qualifications and for international qualifications, and then the forms of assessment and quality assurance that we're going to put in place to add to your what we call the basket of evidence that I'll be talking about. So first of all, just a timeline. Once again, we won't go into all of this in detail. A couple of these dates have already passed. The key one, of course, of 21st March means that if you want to enter any student for this summer's series, if you want them to be considered for a grade, their entry needs to be made by the 21st of March, this coming weekend. So effectively tomorrow, the last working day, to get those entries in. And if you have any problems or queries about making your entries, then liaise with Claudio to make sure that everything goes through smoothly. There's also just the point that if you have a doubt about entering a candidate, then I would say it would be worth entering them on the basis that you then have another month to withdraw them at no cost if you choose to do that. That it wins you a month where you gain extra information about the support and the evidence that you'll need to present at no price. The price is only the effort of making the entry, but basically putting the marker down is the important thing by the 21st of March. At the end of this month, we're going to give you a great deal more detail and start sending you the assessment and support materials, which I'll tell you more about. Then starts the gathering of evidence process, which has more or less formal components to it, which I'll tell you about in detail. That goes through April, May until the middle of June. And the deadline to have everything into us will be the 18th of June. Once the basket of evidence for each candidate has to be finally submitted. We then work through June and July to work through a 3-stage quality assurance program, which I'll talk you through. And then the issue of grades this summer, formal grades are issued a week earlier than usual. In the middle of August, in both cases a week before, around a week before the typical dates that they were coming out. That's partly to support progression and the work of universities and progression agencies. So, there'll be various forms of support and a great deal of information coming your way. So look out for those in the usual channels in our weekly newsletter and in our exams officer through the exams officer portal. The detailed guidance on teacher assessed grades will start coming through from the end of this month. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the forms of evidence and the ways in which we'll help you to submit that evidence in terms of teacher guides and videos and other aids to completing the teacher assessed grading program. And then in parallel with that, we also have information for students and parents and carers with a new piece of information is that there's a video that has just been created by Hayley White, our assessment director, aimed at parents to explain to them the grading method for this summer. And at the end, I'll provide you the link to the pages where that parent information is available too. This, once again, I'll talk past. This is just for when I send you this presentation afterwards. You have the links for the various places to look for the information that I'm referring to in various forms. So this is a where to go summary. And this is the information, the extra information for parents and students as well, and the links for them that I'll be sending on to you. Okay, so let's talk about the methodology for this summer. As you know, we made the decision to withdraw exams and to replace them by a system of teacher assessed grading, and that decision itself took a long time to make and was not a simple one, and was made, I think, in the end because, first of all, maintaining exams actually maintained more doubt than having a single system available to everyone, which respected the variety of situations that students and institutions are in around the world. If we'd had a mixed economy system of allowing exams to be taken in some administrations and teacher assessed grades taken in another, then we felt that it was not sustainable to provide an equitable grade using two different methods of assessment. So what we wanted to do was to ensure that we took account, and this is where, of course, we differ from the UK, that we don't have just one country, one administration's situation to look at, but scores and scores of countries around the world. And we had to allow for the variety of experience and amount of teaching, disruption to teaching time and to the student experience in any number of countries. And of course, an evolving situation, which means that even now, you know, we're talking here about France and Italy, but even in France and Italy, there are parts of each country that are already locked down or risking going into another lockdown. So it's not even certain that if we were able to offer exams now, that you would know, that be sure yourselves that your students would be able to take them. So that only added to the uncertainty. This way, you have a clear, certain approach. And from our point of view, we have a method and a methodology which ensures equitable outcomes for students based on a range of different situations, which we allow for. So that's the summary of the approach. The teachers will pull together the evidence based on a range of methods that we will ask you to pull together. So obviously some of it will be based on the existing non-exam assessments that you've been conducting over the period of your candidates' learning program over the last 2 years, but we'll also add in some more formal assessment tools to help you this summer. So internationally, what did we want to add? That the point about the range of evidence being based on as much as the teachers can assemble, and as the greatest quality of information that teachers can assemble for each candidate. And this, of course, is always more complicated for private candidates, but offers the alternative and the option for private candidates to present as much evidence as it's possible for them to do with the help of their submitting centres. Let's talk a little bit more. Oh, there's a little bit of information about some specific subjects. These are UK subjects, so I won't hesitate on those for the moment. But I want to talk about the forms of quality assurance, and then go into a little bit more detail onto the international version of this. So quality assurance will take account of a centre's profile. Obviously, the longer a centre has been submitting candidates, the more their history will help them in terms of providing a background to the grades that they're submitting. But of course, they won't define alone the interpretation of the grades that teachers submit. We will, once all of the basket of evidence and the suggested grades have been submitted by centres, we'll also, of course, be asking that each head of centre signs a declaration validating the methodology within the centre. There'll be the opportunity for students to appeal grades as usual. The first stage of this should be internal, though, that between the candidates and the centre, there should be a review of the process by which the student's grade or proposed grade has been submitted, and to ensure that according to the rules of the teacher assessed grading, no error has been made from the institution side. If that's the case, then you can then escalate an appeal to us, and we will go through an external review of the evidence in order to check whether an appeal should be upheld or not. And that might mean checking back with the centre as well, of course. In terms of variations for international qualifications, as you've seen, we've used a similar approach to the UK's. The main difference is that we're boosting the forms of evidence that we're allowing schools to present, and recognizing that we also have more private candidates internationally, and we need to provide them with greater support. But the outcomes should ensure that we have exact parity with the value of the UK qualifications. So the teacher grade will still be derived by the centre. The main extra form of evidence that goes into your basket of evidence for each candidate is formal assessments. Now, the formal assessments that we will send through to you are unseen Pearson test papers, which were designed to be the exams for this summer. So you will receive the exam papers. We would encourage you also, to the extent that it's possible, to set these papers in exam conditions, so that reproduce and your ability to reproduce the exam in as far as possible similar conditions as you would under formal exam in a formal exam series will strengthen the evidence in your basket of evidence for each candidate. We recognise that may not always be possible, that schools may be locked down, that it may not be possible to have all the students together in the same place. But the closer you can get, we're allowing for the variety of situations that schools will find themselves in. But the closer you can get to that, and the more that you can point to that as a point of strength in your evidence, the better the experience is. And also, frankly, probably from the student's point of view, in terms of going through the process, it's helpful for them to feel what going through a real exam feels like. Even though, and this is the reassurance that we would want you to be able to give them, is that any underperformance can be compensated by the teacher. So this is where it's different from a public exam series. Normal exams, if you undershoot on the day, then that's bad luck. This year, if a student undershoots for any reason, then there are ways for the teacher in the evidence that they present to compensate for that. So in a way, what we're trying to do is that this is a kind of exams plus approach. The exams plus evidence means that can only be helpful to the student rather than an obstacle. So That's the approach. These papers will be released to you in advance, and there will be a date on which they can be opened to be used in an unseen form. So each paper will have a specific time and date, like a normal exam series, at which it is designed to be taken unseen. Any time after that, of course, we can no longer entirely guarantee that it will be unseen. And we would ask you to make that clear, the conditions under which it becomes slightly less strong evidence, of course, if you're unable to set all of the papers or to set them all in unseen conditions. After that date, you can continue to use the papers, but they won't be they won't have the quite the strength of the paper in its unseen form. It's still the evidence is for you, so this is to evidence for us to return to you. You can either mark the papers yourselves according to the mark scheme that we'll provide, or we will provide the marking service for them. So you can submit exam papers for us to mark in the same way. We won't be marking for a grade, we'll be marking to give you a mark, an indication, and some interpretation of how you can use that to support your proposed grade. So that's where the difference is, that there's a step between you submitting and us awarding the grade. We supply you with a mark that you then add into your basket of evidence to provide your proposed grade. But this, I think, is the extra piece which I think has added the greatest strength to the international series. So the quality assurance that we go through once all the evidence has been submitted is, first of all, going through the written evidence, the paper-based procedural review, all of the bits that you've put together for each candidate. Secondly, looking at policies and feedback to centres, and that frequently will involve a virtual communication, a virtual call with the leadership team at our centres to ask questions about the evidence that's been submitted. And third phase, we will sample subject level reviews of evidence. So from the evidence, we'll pick out examples in order to test its resilience. Those are the key points, I think, from that internationally. This, once again, I'll go through very quickly. So the timings are coming up. We're expecting to release the timetable by the 31st of March. The first papers will get to you by on the 9th. We'll start sending out on the 9th of April. All of the papers will have been sent out by the 26th of April. And I think on the 31st of March, that's the date at which we'll tell you the dates of each of the unseen papers when they're due to be sat, if you're able to present them in those conditions. So this summarizes those pieces. Those are the contact details for Claudio and me, and I think it's the main thing now is for me perhaps to stop the presentation, to send this through to you afterwards, and to address the questions that you might want to ask. And actually, there were a couple of questions that were submitted in advance. So, can I check is Nicola with me on the call here? Nicola, hello. Can you come off mute? There we go.
Hi. Sorry.
Are you with me there?
I have been here the whole time, Rob. I
Very
waited
good.
for you earlier.
Oh, sorry. When I'm in presentation mode, I can only see a couple of people.
Hi, Nicola. I'm Donatella from Pearson. Where are you? Are you in London?
Oh, hi, Donatella. Yes, well, technically I'm in Salisbury, but I belong to the London.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. Okay.
All right. So listen, Nicola's the international qualifications director at Pearson Edexcel, and she'll be able to answer hopefully most of the questions, at least those for which we already have answers. And we know that some things are still in the pipeline, are due to come. But Nicola, I wanted to start with a couple of questions that were submitted in advance. So first of all, this from Sharon Jones of the English National Programme at the Cité Scolaire Internationale Inferney-Voltaire near Geneva. And she says, with regards to the optional marking service offered by Pearson, my concerns are when would the deadline be for the sending the papers to for the grades to be returned to us? Because we would need them in well before the deadline for submitting the predicted grades. Can you give an indication about that?
No is the short answer, but we're very conscious that you will need time to get that marking information back to then convert that and incorporate that into your grades, into your decisions. So all of that is being factored in. All of the timelines are a little bit condensed, but we're looking to confirm details like that in terms of timing by the end of this month. So in the next qualifications bulletin, you should be getting, I believe, more information on that. But at this point, I can assure you that we are very aware that you will need those in enough time, or as much time as we can give you to factor into your final grade decisions.
Do we know what the date is for when the sort of the last of the unseen papers would be set? About what time that would be?
I believe so. I want to say, but I was just looking for the last qualifications bulletin. I think we're going to be confirming more details about that next week. So on that kind of the time frame of the unseen assessments, or the earliest they can be used. So we should have more information for you on that next week. All of what we've done is kind of looked at, okay, here's results day, and then work backwards to what we need to do, and then what you need to do, from that submission date of June 18th, and working backwards again to make sure we're allowing well, I'm going to say sufficient time. I know time is going to be quite tight, but to make sure we're not squeezing too much in any of those areas. So those things are factored in, but I don't have any exact dates for you yet, but we're confirming imminently on the assessment dates.
Okay, so watch this space. Second question from Dominique Dubois at the International School of Nice was, if we use your services for marking the unseen international GCSE papers, will we be able to view the marked exam scripts, the access to scripts service that people find so useful? Would that be available under this
I'm
method?
not sure, actually. Oh, you're hitting me with all of the questions I don't know answers to first. Ask me one I know. I don't know, Robin. Actually, let's take that one away, because
I thought it was an interesting question too, because I haven't seen it come up before either.
No, it hasn't, but I'm sure there will be a plan for it. I just don't know what the answer is to that one.
Okay, so let's make sure that we put that into our FAQs once we've checked that one. The next one, I think you'll probably have a more confident answer for, is if you're not certain that your students are going to be ready or prepared to take the exams this summer, will there be an opportunity for students to take exams in any subject again later this year? Right.
So I am just going to, just on semantics, I know, but it is a really important distinction that they're not exams as we know them this summer. But yes, so I don't know, I hope all of you have participated in the survey that we ran I want to say a couple of weeks ago now, asking about, whether an additional series would be useful for you this year and indicating which subjects they would be. So I am in the midst, actually this afternoon, today of pulling those details together and a recommendation for an additional series later on in 2021. So yes, there will be opportunities. I can't confirm at this point that will be all subjects. We received a lot of feedback. We had a lot of response, which was fantastic for me, about which subjects you'd like to see included, and entries that you'll be expecting to make. So all of that is being factored in, but it's not a given that it will be all subjects, but we'll certainly be looking to include those subjects that are popular, where we have a reasonable number of entries to meet the needs of our students.
Yes, we do know that there will be a very substantial autumn series again this year in any case, don't we? Yeah. A question here from Julie. Hello, Julie. Julie Pollitt at the Old School in southwestern France. We've had mixed messages about digital portfolios for GCSE art and design and recorded evidence for GCSE and A-level music. What's the procedure? I think these are the UK rather than the international qualifications, aren't they, Julie? Which means that we might have to refer to our UK subject advisor for absolute detail.
Yes, I think I need to follow up on those for you, Julie, because I don't look after those qualifications, but for an entirely different reason. I was in touch with the assessment team today about art and design, and I believe that the information that's on our website around the assessment, I think we've got the approach we published in September in that first round of changes, and that is still valid. So if it is there, I believe that information is correct. But Rob, maybe we go back to the subject advisors just to confirm,
yes.
And we'd also need to do that around music as well.
All right. Well, let's pick that up and send Julie the additional detail. Okay. From Mike Kirby. Is there any payment due for the marking service?
Yes. So Mike, we're looking at confirming this. We've got lots of parallel work streams. I'm not working on it all myself, but there's another conversation happening about how this will work in the context of your existing qualification fee, and in the context of any rebates, and factoring in all of the costs around this service. So I don't have a confirmation for you yet, but again, I believe that we're really close to being able to confirm this, and understanding how that will work. So we know it's a pressing question, and we're hoping to be able to confirm it imminently. I would very much expect no later than the qualifications bulletin on the 31st. It may be sooner than that.
And from Anna Lucia Di Renzo at St. George's British International School in Rome. If we have a candidate entering an exam which has no class and no teacher of that subject, could the evidence come only from our marking service?
Good question. Short answer is yes. What you will need, so if you do use the unseen assessments in that high controlled scenario and use the Pearson marking service, then that will give you the mark back to be sufficient evidence for your basket, for your grade. What you will need to factor in your planning is that candidate would still need a teacher to be able to review that mark and the supporting information that we feed back in order to confirm the final grade. But if that is the evidence that you have, then that is possible.
Very good. From Claire Webster at Southlands International School in Rome, will the unseen material be treated in the same way as the exam material, or will it be released on your website as well?
Well, that's a question of timing. It will not be released on our website in advance, because otherwise we're fairly sure it won't remain unseen for long. So it will be unseen. So we'll be distributing it in the same way as we usually distribute materials, any kind of assessment materials. We're also finalizing some instructions / guidance to all schools receiving those. materials to keep them safe. They must be kept securely in the same way as any other assessment materials. And we also really, really encourage you all to be good partners to each other and make sure that you keep those secure and as secure as possible, including after you have used them, because there may be other schools who can't use them straight away but want to use them in an unseen way. And so the more we all work together to keep them secure, the more integrity they will have for those schools and candidates looking to use them as evidence. So the security of the materials is very much what you'll be used to in a normal year.
So
I imagine, just to come back to the website factor, at some point they'll be released as, past papers, but it won't be before the assessment window.
But we usually go through that 3 stages, don't we? First of all, it's released only securely, then under a lock, available to exams officers, and then eventually as a past paper. I imagine there'll be a similar process with these.
Yes, and just on the while we're on them, you will. We had some confusion, and hence why I'm going to mention it now. In last year in autumn, we used papers that were originally planned to be used in the summer. And some schools found that really confusing because on the front of the paper, it still had the summer dates on it. So if you receive these materials, they will also have this summer's date on them. But you will get a sticker for the paper. The sticker will describe something else. I'm not entirely sure on the wording, but they will look like standard assessment materials because they are, and then you will be able to use the sticker overlaying it. So I don't know what the wording is, but just don't be worried if it says something different on the front cover. Refer to the sticker and the instructions, and then you'll be on the right track.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Claire. Next question from Marc Petrequin at Mougins School in the southeast of France. We've run a series of mock exams under exam conditions. Do we have to scan all of them or part of them, such as written answers, rather than including also listening and reading? This is getting down to sort of what the detailed presentation of the evidence will be, which is being worked on at the moment, isn't it?
It is, and I'm going to be a little bit vague on this one again. We're producing more details about how exactly the QA process will work so that we can share that with you. At this point in time, I would say you don't need to prepare to submit anything to us as standard, but you need to make sure that you have that evidence available should we need to see it as part of the QA process. So I don't think, Mark, at this time, unless our instructions indicate differently in the next qualifications bulletin, I don't think you have to scan them at all. I don't think you have to scan anything. You just need to have it available to send it to us, to show it to us if we need to see it. And you could do that by scanning it, I suppose, but I don't think you need to do that in advance.
But I mean, there will be really a lot of detail that's being worked on at the moment coming out over the next 3 weeks. I guess most of it will be coming out, won't it? So the next question from Mary Lovaglio at the Liceo Isacco Newton in Rome. For the unseen material, will there be modified papers too?
Yes. Deborah's head shot up there.
Yeah, so it's just it's the normal processes as for a regular exam series, because this was going to be the exam series. It's all but an exam. Next question from Tiziana Pisani. We've got a big Rome contingent. She's at the Liceo Democrito in Rome. The Italian school calendar. Tiziana needs to know when students are going to take the unseen exams. Yeah, you need to be able to program them in, know what those dates are, just because, of course, there's a lot more going on in schools than just our exams, particularly in Italian state schools. So to remind you, school ends for students at the 10th of June and state exams start on the 16th. Well, all of ours will be over before then, won't they? Well before then, because the final evidence will need to be presented by the 18th of June. So those will have been before then, and the calendar is due out in a couple of weeks, isn't it? Nicola, you've gone on mute again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I had to switch my headphones off because the battery's dying.
Ah.
On the 23rd of March, we will confirm the dates for the earliest use of the unseen assessment materials per subject or per paper. So that's coming, I want to say that's Monday, 19th, 21st, 22nd, 20th. I think 23rd is next Monday. So you should have that imminently, Tiziana, for your planning.
Yeah. So, and it certainly won't overlap with the Italian state exams. We'll be out of the way before then.
Yes.
Well,
yes. I think that's a reasonable assumption.
Yes. The next question, Mike Kerbu, I think is the International School of Bern. I hope I'm not introducing your role there, Mike. Will the dates for opening the unseen assessments, he says for IAL, but of course the question could go for IG as well, be the same as the original dates for the exams?
They will not be, Mike. No, they won't. So the timetable, the original exam timetable is no longer valid. We're producing a different schedule. That's the one that's coming out on the 23rd to give you dates for the earliest opening, as you put it, of the papers. It will be because of your deadline of June the 18th for submitting, and in relation to the previous question about the turnaround time for you to get those marks back and convert them into the grades and factor them into your basket, it will be a bit sooner and it will be a bit more condensed. So it's going to be one of those where it might work perfectly for you on that particular day. It might be that you say, okay, maybe it does need to be a day later for your individual circumstances. So it's something to bear in mind, but we'll be confirming the details, the exact dates next week on Monday.
Very good. Mary, I think your next question we can answer quite simply. Will the school receive copies of the papers for each of the entered students? That will be just as usual, won't it? It'll be an exam paper for each entered candidate.
Yes.
Mustn't call them exam papers, an unseen paper.
Unseen assessment materials, I think we're going with, Rob. So you will receive a paper, a copy, a physical copy for each entered student, with the caveat of, obviously, if you enter students very late, so if you have any late submissions, it may be necessary to do that digitally for those late submissions. So it's another reason why I really encourage you to make your entries by the deadline if you can, because that also means that you're definitely included in the shipment of physical papers.
Very good. And yes, Mary, you can enter your we might not all be at the office at the weekend, but you're very welcome to submit your candidate entries over the weekend right up until the deadline at the end of the 21st. That's no problem.
And I think, Rob, we've skipped another question from Anna Lucia.
Oh yes, so Anna Lucia asked.
Yes,
yeah, there will be a do not open before date, won't there?
That is correct.
And yeah, Mary's also asked about the speaking test.
Yes.
Yes. So how will the speaking test be conducted this year? Things like she's thinking of the English as a second language.
I know the ones you're speaking of. And there's in all of the MFLs as well, there's the speaking component. I can't remember, Mary. I'm very sorry. We're looking, the reason I can't remember is because I'm going to confuse two things and I don't want to mislead you. So we're looking to update this information for you on our subject pages early as possible. And we're just trying to make sure that we've got that right, because we have the endorsements and then we have the speaking. So sometimes it's a pass merit distinction situation. Sometimes it's a 9-to-1 grade if it's the IG. So I just want to make sure that we give the correct information. So look out next week. We're looking to get more information for you on the subject pages then.
Yes. So once again, keep an eye on the website for the extra information coming. Claire Webster again at Southlands. Yes, I think this is this question was similar to a previous one about how long it takes us to turn around the marking service once the papers have been submitted, and that's all part of the calendar that's due to be published soon, right?
Yes. So I don't know if we'd have an exact, it will be 2 days, 5 days, 10 days per paper. But I think what we'll have is that we'll get things back to you no later than, so that you have X amount of time before you need to submit the final grade on June the 18th. I'm expecting, I think that will all come as part of the timeline to make sure that you have that information in advance.
Yes, and Julie, again in the Dordogne. No, it's not the Dordogne, is it? It's just down, it's down there in southwest anyway. For special considerations, access arrangements, and all those things that are normally part of an exam series. What's the procedure for signaling those adjustments in this year's process, special access arrangements and so on?
Yes, I think that might be a good one for us to take away, Rob, to have as part of the FAQs to confirm. What I will say now, Julie, is because they're now teacher assessed grades, I think you would keep that information, that indicator, as part of your evidence basket, so that if it comes to a time of looking at that evidence and understanding how you got to that grade, that information is part of the basket, the package, as it were, and that you've got that really clear. But I think it would be worth noting, Rob, for feeding back into FAQs or general guidance.
I'll take a note, but I would expect it would need the same sorts of sort of external evidence and proof as would be required for a normal exam series.
It's basically you're kind of applying the special consideration at this point due to your understanding of the individual circumstances of a candidate, whether that's due to usual access requirements or in relation specifically to COVID situations and circumstances.
But once again, you may need to provide evidence to support that, external evidence, in the way that you would for special considerations for an exam candidate. I think we've got to the bottom of our list of questions. So, I'm sure we've not got to the end of all the questions that you will have. Even if we've got to the end of the list for today. Actually, here's another one that's come in. So from Mark in Mougins. Let me just. What sort of extra evidence would be required for students who've just decided on receipt of the results in March to retake IAL modules that were sat in January?
Right.
Yeah, if they're entering them just now.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think you would still be looking for evidence to support the grade that you're submitting as that resit. I believe there will be more information about that, but I think even if not, the principles remain the same. Whereas if you think that a candidate should be getting a higher grade than they had in a mock or in a previous exam series, I think you need to make sure that you've got the evidence to back up that improvement in grades.
Oh, and yes, Anna Lucia wanted just clarification about if we're using the unseen material for a private candidate.
Right.
What was it about needing a teacher? Just
to
reconfirm the information you gave on that front.
What did I say about that? So that was about if you get the marks back from the unseen assessment marked by Pearson.
And you didn't have a teacher in the school, for instance, for that subject.
So what will be returning? I see, Anna Lucia, I was just looking for you in the grid. what we'll be confirming back is the mark, and the the supporting information to allow a teacher to be able to confirm a grade based on that mark, and supporting materials such as grade descriptors to be able to define that final grade. So for private candidates, absolutely, you can use that route, but you will need to have that teacher, I don't want to say intervention, that teacher action of taking the mark and confirming what the final grade is, that they're comfortable with submitting the final grade based on that mark in the context of the support that we'll provide, the supporting materials. Does that answer your question? Yeah, good.
And a question from Irene in Potenza in southern Italy. We're not entering students for this summer series, and the plan was to enter them for the January 2022 series. Can they use the marking service anyway for the mock exams this summer? And also, I think perhaps it'd be worth saying about what might be coming, not just in January, but November, because there won't just be a normal traditional January series, will there? Because it'll be split now for IG between November and January. With extra subjects in November as well.
Possibly. It is something that we're looking at, Irena, because we're trying to balance, and it's a tightrope walk. We're trying to balance the needs of those customers or students who need an alternative to summer early as possible, while also understanding that there are also customers who are expecting to do examinations in January 2022 or the following summer. So I think the additional series this year and January will be looking to consolidate, at least for the smaller subjects, but again, this is still to be confirmed, but there might be a couple of subjects that we pull forward into earlier dates so that there is an additional opportunity for those subjects this year. So that may be possible. That was your question, Rob. Irena is asking about the marking service for mock exams. And I'm not directly involved at the moment in the mocks offering. I know we're planning on launching to you as soon as possible. We're really keen. I don't have all the details on dates yet, but we will be confirming that soonest. I don't think it will be before the summer though, so I wouldn't plan for that.
No, actually, I think there are already two things there, because I'm not sure that that Irene has heard about the mocks marking service, which is a whole new project actually that we're going to be launching later this year to offer long term the ability to set mocks and have them marked by us moving forward. But whether the opportunity to use the marking service for this summer series would be available to anyone who wasn't entering candidates for this summer series, which I would think not, right?
No, I mean, you could achieve that by making the entries, but I think it's only it's only for the entries for this summer. But you could give that a go.
And I suppose afterwards the papers will be made available, but won't be marked automatically by us. There'll be a marking scheme which you can mark, but unfortunately that's back to the old system until and unless you sign up for our online mock service, which is perhaps trailing a launch that's coming later I think later this year. A little ad break. Right, let's press on very quickly because we're nearly coming to the end. Anna Lucia, good question. Are we doing rankings by student this year in the basket of evidence? When you're having to get per grade like last year, were you having to rank students against each other and so on?
No, is the short answer. No, so it's just the grade that you'll submit. Yeah.
Which I think lots of teachers will be glad of, because it was lots of judgments of Solomon they were being forced to make last year, which hopefully they can avoid. Mike asks, Is it correct that the supporting evidence that's collected is kept in the school until it's asked for?
Correct, Mike. Yes. So make sure you do keep it, but you don't need to submit it anywhere unless requested.
And that's when we'll be doing the quality assurance, where
Correct.
we'll be sampling it. Yeah. And similarly, yes. So Mark, I think we've answered your question. We're not ranking for each IAL module by student per module per grade, are we? There's no ranking per student per grade this year.
There's no ranking, no. And I'm just looking at the last one. Will all of the evidence have to be paper copy, or can it be teacher marks? You mean just the marks only rather than the papers, the scripts? Is that what the question
So I suppose
is?
it means, can the evidence be the teacher interpretations, rather than...
I think so. I mean, I think it would be better. I'm going to defer to the guidance that's to come on the QA process and on the evidence. My feeling is if you have the scripts, don't throw them away. Definitely keep them. But if you don't have those, then obviously that's not evidence available. But have a look when we publish more details about the evidence, just to confirm that.
Very good. Well, thanks very much, Nicola, and thanks to everybody for joining us this afternoon. The conversation doesn't stop here. The reason for doing this was just to make sure that we're all on the same page, and you know pretty much as we do now, but we'll be updating you with new information very regularly over the coming weeks. You'll get a lot of detail, and as you've seen from the slides, there's a great deal of support coming to help you, because we recognize that it's very new and there'll be a lot of work involved. So we'll try to lighten the load in terms of answering as many of your questions as we can before you have to roll your sleeves up and get into the process. So anyway, please do keep asking questions, send me emails, and keep a close eye on our website for updates and for answers to your frequently asked questions, or some of them less frequently asked, but no less important, as we discovered today. But thank you very much for your time today. Good luck for this summer series. Good luck to you and to all your students for the rest of this academic year. And please, let's keep in close touch, because it's actually really valuable for us, sessions like this, because the questions that you ask are equally valid to all of the other thousands of centres around the globe that we speak to. So thanks very much for your time, your participation.